All right, and we're here at PBG Paints Arena. My name is Brendan Flatow. This is Donovan Cranage. We were covering the A10 tournament this past week along with some others from DSTV and DSR, but we're here to break it down for you live on Voice of Duquesne Live. Donovan, first off, what are your instant reactions after VCU was crowned champions?
Well, I thought VCU was very dominant all weekend. I mean, their closest game was with Duquesne, where they still had a multiple possession lead on them. And then they went into the semifinals and dominated against St. Joe's and did the same thing against Dayton.
All right, so let's start with Wednesday's first round of actions. Real quick, since it was the first day, what do you think of that first day? What surprised you?
Well, St. Bonaventure, they had a lot of playmakers on that team. Frank Mitchell, Daryl Simmons, they both came to play, DeSante Bowen. And they ended up winning, probably a game more than they should have against George Mason, but looked very impressive that first day against LaSalle.
Yeah, and I think my surprise was probably the way that Loyola Chicago played in that one. They were one of the worst squads throughout the regular season. They were the worst squad throughout the regular season, but they came out, put up a good showing, put up a good fight. Made it through, but not much further after that.
They did.
Now we'll move on to day two. The highlight of day two, for us at least, was the Duquesne versus Rhode Island game, which Duquesne picked up the big win. I'm sure you've heard about it, seen about it by now. What did you think of that game versus URI?
Well, it was less competitive than I thought it was going to be. Duquesne had a solid lead for, I'd say, most of the game, specifically in the first half, and they played a brand of basketball that made them able to compete with VCU. But it started with that game against Rhode Island, where we saw two incredible performances from Alex Williams and Jamie Williams.
Yeah, and aside from the two Williams, there was a lot of guys who contributed to that game. Brandon Hall on the defensive end. He kind of had a little bit of a spark at the beginning of the game, too, for Duquesne. They started fast, and, probably not their best game they played all season, but they played damn well enough to win. Maybe they would have liked to shoot it a little bit better, especially from the foul line, but a win's a win, and you move on to the next. And so do we. Next day was Friday. The highlight was Duquesne VCU, but there was also some other big games. What did you think of the games that weren't the Duquesne game? We'll start there.
Well, we already talked about St. Bonaventure, but that win against George Mason was so impressive. They kept up with them on defense very well, and at the end of the game, took over and was able to get the win. I was very impressed also from St. Joe's, Davidson. They went in and got the win against Loyola Chicago, who was coming off a very good performance against Richmond that we just talked about as well.
Yeah, and then there's Friday slates of games. It's the first time we saw the one seeds. St. Louis had a little bit of a scare in that one.
Yeah, they did. They kept it close, but, you have clutch players, and we're going to see them in the tournament this week against Georgia, coming up tomorrow on Thursday. I think they got players that are gonna make big time plays. Robbie Oliva, we saw it against Dayton as well in the semis.
He did his part.
Yeah, he did his part, and they got the win, although they kept it close.
Well, maybe he didn't do his part on the boxing out end. That led to Latong making that tap in play, kind of David Dixon-esque.
Yeah.
For the win. But now Duquesne versus VCU. What are your thoughts after that one? It's a tough one. Maybe Duquesne versus the refs.
It was a tough one, and the officiating was definitely questionable. We talked about it all game. But at the end of the day, I feel like Duquesne really did have their chances, especially Ginyard there. He had a breakaway and ended up turning the ball over, which was a very unfortunate end to a game they kept close with a very solid VCU team that ended up winning the A10, and now they have a game against UNC coming up in March Madness.
Yeah, and Duquesne was I was sitting with the camera right down on the Duquesne bench. They were not pleased with the officiating throughout the game, but that doesn't mean that they lost because of the officiating. They had their chances. Obviously, Ginyard slipped and lost the ball trying to push it up the floor to get the timeout. Drew Joyce said in the press conference that he was jumping up frantically to call the timeout. The officials didn't give it to him. He had the at least A10 famous eye test quote during that press conference where he said that he doesn't know if the refs need eye tests or what they need to be able to see, but they missed that one. But if they had gotten that timeout, man, things could have been different for the Dukes. And for the A10 in the tournament as a whole, that could have shifted. That could have been a one-bid league after that.
Absolutely, yeah.
The St. Louis drops one to Dayton on the semifinal day. We'll talk about that in a second. But Duquesne really could have spoiled it. And there was definitely some people saying that, the A10 needed VCU to win. Maybe that played a part in the officiating. I don't think so. I think that those officials, the A10 getting 2 bids doesn't affect those officials at all. They're worried about getting their NCAA tournament bid, and obviously those officials aren't going to get one after that performance, but they have no effect on who gets in from the A-10 because they want to get in themselves, and that means that they got to call a good game.
And a huge shout out to David Dixon, who played his final game as a Duquesne Duke in that game, and I think he played tremendously on the defensive side. Obviously, he fouled out towards the end, but he was a huge...
Some questionable calls.
Yeah, and he played a huge role, especially defensively for Duquesne in his final game.
Yeah, and it was nice to see him get that standing ovation from the crowd, be honored by his teammates who all shook his hand as he left the court for the final time as a Duke. Also, shout out to the other seniors, Alex William, a grad student. He played great all-tournament, named to the all-tournament team, I believe.
Maybe. I voted for him.
Yeah, he was definitely voted for by a lot of people. He was in the running. But a great career for Alex Williams. It ended with that game. But hopefully we see David Dixon playing pro very soon.
That would be cool.
All right, we'll move on now to semifinal games. Obviously, the big one was Dayton versus St. Louis, but we're going to start with the second game, VCU St. Joe's. We'll say the best for last here.
Yeah, well, it was just... It was all VCU all game. You know, from the jump, they got out to a huge lead, and St. Joe's could just never catch up.
Yeah, St. Joe's was my pick to win it all. I really thought that they had the best chance. Obviously, they couldn't get it done when it mattered in the semifinals. They will get a high seed in the NIT, so their season will continue, but obviously not in the tournament that they wanted to be in.
Right.
Moving on now, the game of the tournament, Dayton, St. Louis. We got a big shot for Dayton, puts him up. Robbie Avila the other way, three-pointer, top of the key. Then a missed shot, tap in by Latong. What are your thoughts? You were there. I missed that game. I had baseball.
I was there.
But you were there.
I feel like that sequence might have been the craziest sequence in any sports game I've ever attended. So that was awesome to see in person. But it really wasn't like that the whole game. You know, the first half, it wasn't that close. And then, you know, towards the end, some missed shots lead to a closer game, and you ended up having that insane sequence. But what a job by not just the team Dayton, but the fans of Dayton showed up. And they showed up all tournament, but I think it really played a huge role in that upset against St. Louis.
Right where we're sitting right now is a sea of red before, like 2 hours before all of their games. They came ready, they came prepared. Also, the VCU fans showed up.
Oh, they did, absolutely.
And we had a good chanting war going in the finals between VCU and Dayton. I would say I tweeted probably 60-40 Dayton in the crowd, would you say?
I would say so.
But both fan bases showed up. Dayton a lot closer than VCU, but it was a great atmosphere. Almost Lower Bowl sold out for that game.
Yeah. Well, it was sort of similar to the St. Joe's game where it was kind of just never really a question, but they kept it a lot closer than St. Joe's. Obviously, VCU came out with the win, and not just a shout out to their fans, but their pep band.
Oh.
We've talked about it. Was incredible. I think that also played a huge role, feeling like a home game in some sorts for VCU.
Yeah, their pep band was loud. I mean, they were really good, but I don't know how I feel about the pep bands bringing in speakers to make them louder.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like you should be able to bring that noise on your own. You shouldn't need 10 ginormous amplifiers to get that noise out there. But they were very electric. They were into it the whole time. They were chirping pretty good during warm-ups. They were even chirping the camera people. I was catching strays trying to record Duquesne warming up against VCU, but they were into the game. You got to respect it. But what do you think going into the tournament, VCU? What's your outlook on that?
Well, VCU plays a very fast-paced sort of basketball, and I think that'll be a key factor in the fact that UNC is banged up right now. You're not going to have all your star players if you're North Carolina. I think VCU is on upset watch. I personally have them beating UNC. I probably wouldn't have that if I didn't get to see them this whole tournament, but they impressed me a lot, both against St. Joe's and then Dayton, and I think they have the players, the atmosphere to go in and beat a banged-up UNC team.
Yeah, and for VCU, going into the season, I thought that they were going to have a very good chance to make a run here in the A-10 and the NCAA tournament because when you think about it, with NIL now, VCU's not a small school. They have big donors. They make a lot of money. They don't have football.
Correct.
They don't have to put any money towards football. All of their NIL goes to those 5 guys on the basketball team. So you know that they're going to be able to put together a good team. UNC, though, I mean, they're putting money towards their guys, too. But as you mentioned, they're a little banged up. I think that's a perfect situation for an 11 seed. If you're looking at your bracket and you're picking an 11 seed, VCU is who you should pick. Not just saying that because we covered the A-10 tournament. They're a good squad.
Well, and you mentioned the 5 players, but it's really they have an 8-player rotation that is lethal. It was easily the best rotation throughout the A-10 tournament. Terrence Hill Jr. is coming off the bench. He won the Most Outstanding Player Award here at the A-10 tournament, and he's one of the best players in the whole conference.
Yeah, you got to guard Terrence Hill, and then look at the other A-10 tournament briefly. We'll cover them. The other team going into the tournament, St. Louis, 8 versus 9. 8 versus 9 games are always those close ones.
Yeah.
I don't think St. Louis can pull it out first round.
Really?
I don't think so.
I'm
I've seen them all year. I think they're frauds.
I mean, we saw them compete with Dayton, who ended up making the finals and didn't really keep it close.
You need Avila to score 40.
You need your star players to come out. Coach Josh Schertz said it in their press conference after their first game. There's no I in team, but there's I in win. So you need your star players to come out and do what they do best.
Now, I think an advantage to do. I think Schertz is a very good coach. I think that they have the role players. Obviously, got to lean on the man with the goggles, Robbie Avila.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be tough. I think Georgia's probably going to pull that one out.
Well, and I'm not a huge Georgia basketball fan. I think they've been kind of up and down all year, and this is. I think that's a good first-round matchup for St. Louis. I think it'll be close, but I think St. Louis can pull it out.
I think we're on this opposite. I think it's going to be very close. I think it's going to go down to the stretch, maybe similar to the Dayton-St. Louis game, but I think in the end, the St. Louis defense, they tire themselves out near the end of the game.
Yeah, they do.
So we saw it a lot, so I don't know. We'll see what happens, but it was a great time for us covering the tournament. I think you'd agree it was an awesome experience.
It was great.
But for the Voice of Duquesne Live, we're now going to send it back to the studio. I'm Brendan Flatow. He's Donovan Cranage.